Richard Connors, and I want to welcome you to this edition of Roundabout Town. I have a very special guest today because recently St. Jude's of Norfolk and St. Edward's of Medfield formed a collaboration. And I have with me my special guest is Father John Culloty. Is that pronounced?
You got it.
Ah, wow, I practiced that. And he's the leader of this collaboration, as well as pastor of St. Jude's and of St. Edward's. Good to see you, Father.
Richard, nice to see you.
Welcome aboard.
You look very healthy.
You've got quite a challenge.
It's interesting.
The collaboration of these two churches, big deal around here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to ask you if you could give us a background of the collaboration.
Sure. Well, you know, like many denominations, personnel, especially priests, are in somewhat short supply these days. And there have been population shifts in some parts of the Archdiocese of Boston covers a fairly large geographical area from Salisbury up on the north out to Marlborough on the west and down to Plymouth on the south. So it's a fairly large geographical area. And at one time we had well over 400 parishes in that area. Some of them were built by small groups of ethnic people. People from Poland came over, and because they wanted a church where their language was spoken, people from Italy, same types of things. So a lot of churches were built up over the course of the years. Populations shift, decline, as we know. People moved out of the cities into the suburbs, and some of these churches were cathedral-like buildings that these immigrants, I don't know how they built them, but the sweat of their brow and a lot of monetary sacrifice that they built these, with large schools, convents, that type of thing. So at any rate, over the years, population has shifted, personnel is a little bit more decreased. So we've gone from well over 400 parishes to presently 263 parishes. And looking at figures down the road, 10 years down the road, we know roughly how many priests we're going to have available to service those 263 parishes down the road. We know that 8-10 years ago, they did do a massive closing of parishes, kind of one fell swoop. They said, you know, we looked at these parishes, we think some of them need to be closed down and consolidated. There was an outcry. People have a very strong emotional attachment to their parish. You know, very often, it's my child was baptized there, my parents were buried from there. You know, they gave their hard-earned money to build this church. So there was a strong emotional attachment. So it was a very, very hard pill for people to swallow when they lost their local parish. I grew up in Brighton, city parish. People walked to church. They didn't drive to church. So when that parish closed, my home parish did close, it wasn't easy for people to get from point A to point B if you have to walk a fair distance. They wanted to do it better. And so they come up with this idea of, why don't we do a collaboration? So instead of closing parishes, we'll see if we can help them function well with one pastor for multiple parishes. So instead of having one pastor per parish, we'll have one pastor for multiple parishes. They hoped that this would do a couple of things. That first of all, that we could use our personnel more effectively. We have roughly now about 300 or so active priests in the Archdiocese of Boston. Now that's down big. When I was ordained 42 years ago, it was about 1,200. Diocesan priests, never mind Franciscans and Jesuits and that were in the diocese as well. Many of those have experienced the same personnel issues. So we're down to about 300. We have some very good priests who do not necessarily want to be administrators. You know, they're excellent in terms, they might be great preachers, they might be, you know, your mother's sick and boy, they're at their bedside. Great people. But the administrative part is something that they don't feel is their strength. And why force them to do it if they don't feel comfortable doing it? So they looked at the numbers and said, we think that if we hold the line at 263 parishes, we can service them with the numbers of priests that we have coming down the pike. In some cases, and I will add quickly, this is not true of Medfield or Norfolk. In some places, you will find that there may be a surplus of buildings, those big parishes that were built years ago, and I have a convent sitting there empty, there's no more nuns teaching in the school perhaps is no longer functioning. Well, if I don't need all those buildings, I can take some overhead off my plate. And maybe if I'm a parish A here, parish B here, and they have a pretty good building for a school, maybe I can jettison some of this stuff over here and have a more effective product. Also, you can maybe use better usage of your staff. You can get rid of some redundancies. So if I'm going to have a speaker come into my youth group, and this is a really dynamic speaker, but it cost me $3,000 to bring this guy in from California, but he's dynamic. Well, I can bring the St. Edwards people over some night and have them have the same presentation by this guy. So instead of paying $3,000 to him on Monday night and then paying $3,000 for Wednesday night at a different venue, bring the two together. I pay him $3,000, and we're both happy. At the end of the day, we've got the product, but at less expense.
Good. So they are going to operate separately in most cases, have their own set of masses, and they're just trying to do all these side benefits that would lower the cost of running both of the churches?
We hope it's a more effective use of personnel
Uh-huh.
and more effective use of your financial resources. And hopefully, again, a better product, because, again, if I can afford to bring that good speaker in by splitting the cost between the two parishes, maybe I can get a quality guy where maybe before, if I didn't have the resources, I said, well, I really got to look for somebody that fits my budget that's
Sure.
much smaller. So two things happen. In the case of St. Edward's and St. Jude's, they are two separate parishes. They are one pastor, but two separate parishes. They keep their own identity. They keep their own set of books. So if you donate your money to St. Jude's,
That's interesting.
it doesn't go to St. Edward's, or vice versa. So if I, for example, say, there's a 6 o'clock Mass on Sunday evening at St. Edward's, I think I'll run over and catch that one because I was away all day today, and I put my envelope from St. Jude's in that collection basket, it goes back to St. Jude's, even though I went to Mass at the other place. So the books have to be kept separate. By church law, the intent of the donor has to be respected. So if I intended to support St. Jude's Parish, that must be respected.
Good, I'm glad you made that clear.
Yeah. Now, in terms of, for example, we have parish councils, which are advisory boards to the pastor. You can have two separate ones, or you can have one joint one. We could say, let's get 4 members from St. Edward's, 4 members from St. Jude's, and they can meet together every month, and they can talk about how we can collaborate better. There's the better use of our resources. We have somebody that's terrific with youth ministry, might be able to come over and help your parish. Or we have someone that's really work with death and dying type of things, long-term care. How do you do a living will? We have a doctor in our parish that's great. He'll come over to St. Jude's and talk about that, give a presentation some night. So they can share ideas and purposes and goals that they might have that are common, but the two parishes are two independent entities.
Excellent. That, I think, you had that, what you called a town meeting at
Correct.
St. Jude's, which I attended to one of the sessions. A lot of ideas came out of that. People gave what they thought would help in this collaboration, and some of them were good ideas, and some of them, well, maybe they can't be implemented.
Well, whenever you're new kid on the block,
Cool.
everybody wants to kind of say, I want to get my oar in the water, if you will.
Yep,
I want
that's
to make
true.
sure that you understand what I try to do, and is this going to continue, and will you support this? So that happens no matter. Even if I was pastor of one parish, that always happens when you're new to the arrangement. But you're very right. In some ways, ideas are easy. Implementing them is challenging. And,
It is.
We all know that we live in a very high-paced world today. When you and I were growing up,
Yeah.
I'm sure, and I know you're much younger than I am, but when we were growing up, for example, Sunday was basically a day of rest. You went to church,
Right.
came home, had a big Sunday dinner, and then you kind of
Exactly.
fought your brother or sister for the comics, or the sports page or whatever, because
True.
there was one newspaper that came in. Today, much more challenging, and I love sports. I think they're great. I think they're a great outlet for kids. But and the people in Norfolk are going to be tired of hearing me say this, but I say it over and over again. Most of your kids will not become professional soccer players or hockey players or baseball players. They probably won't have a starring role in a Broadway play or a Mel Gibson movie. But they got to be good kids, and they got to be able to make good choices in a very, very complicated world today. I mean, it's
Isn't
not
it
the world that we grew up in.
Not even close.
And so parents have to, in many ways, say, okay, what's the lasting benefit? What's the greatest gift we can give to our kid? And I think a set of morals and values, an ability to make good choices, to see both sides of an argument is very, very important. And that's one of the challenges we have today, is to try to find how to schedule like religious education programs so that kids can take advantage of it in a very compact, very filled world
Sure.
and schedule that people
No,
have.
you're in heavy competition with all the things that are going on.
And those other people that are running these soccer programs and sports programs and theater programs. They're wonderful people. I think they're doing a great service. And the more but we can cooperate together and work together towards the same shared goal, I think is something that we need to strive for.
You know, in some of the parishes, they have their own CYO basketball team, and they have a baseball team and a softball team.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something that would attract the younger folks.
Yep. But
I don't blame them. It's tough for these kids.
It surely
I know
is.
you're just disappointed every mother and father that their kid isn't going to be.
Yeah.
You know.
There are not a lot of Bobby Orrs out there, probably. Yeah.
No, that's true. But you're dating yourself with the Bobby
I
Orr.
am. I probably should have moved up to Mookie Betts or something like
Something
that,
like
I
that.
guess, or Xander Bogaerts. But yeah, and it is. It's a challenge today for parents. I know many of them say, I feel like a taxi driver. You know, I'm dropping my kid off here, there, and everywhere. And again, out here too, where
Sure.
it's not exactly a walkable area.
No, it's not. No,
And
it's
so it's challenging. But our challenge, I think, is to offer quality programs, especially if we really believe these young people are our youth, not to neglect the older people who on whose backs many of these churches were built and many of these parishes survive. But if we don't get a constant flow of new blood in there,
true.
you know, we're just marking time.
We need the youth.
We
There's
do.
no question about
do.
it.
And so, you know, I think some of the things I heard at that town meeting the other night was that to make the church a very welcoming environment, you know, to make people feel like no matter what ups or downs you've had, you know, everybody should feel welcome. I think Pope Francis has done a marvelous job.
Hasn't
at
he?
this, you know,
Wow.
I was mentioning one Sunday that I had a Catholic Mormon wedding. The groom was Mormon, the bride was Catholic, and I think the Catholic parents are a little nervous. Well, what if we start talking about religion?
Sure.
So I was doing the wedding, and I had a chance to have dinner with the Mormon parents. She's sitting right beside me, and she said, "Can we talk about religion?" I said, "Oh, here it goes. This is going to ruin this dinner." And she said, "What about this Pope Francis?" And I said, "Well, I think he's marvelous. I wish we had a Pope Francis in our church."
no
you know,
kidding.
She was so impressed. I hear that from so many people. People have said, you know, I was kind of left the
Me
church for a
too.
while, and now I'm really giving him a second shot
Well, he's
because of
getting
that.
people thinking about returning to the church. They
And
have
you know what
found
it is?
reasons.
He's a pastor first. You
He
know?
re-
He
yeah.
really wants to listen to people. So this is what I've said to people. I think he wants to hear your story. He's not saying, Richard, here, I got the answer to your problem. No matter what your problem is,
That's
I got
true.
the answer ahead of
Yep.
time. He wants to tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me what the circumstances of your life. And I'm going to try to help you find a solution that we hope works for you. I want that to happen in St. Jude's Church. You know, that no matter where people are coming from, you're
Yeah.
welcome in those front doors. We'll work with you. Jesus loves us unconditionally, and I think we have to convey that. So the little things are very important. So like when they come in that front door, we talked about the fact, you know, having greeters.
Yes.
People say, you know, I don't recognize you. You must be new to St. Jude's. You know, welcome. If you need the bathroom, it's downstairs, one flight. You know, which is probably the most
Sure.
practical piece of information you'll get. If Culloty's given the sermon, it won't be that good. But next week you'll have a better preacher. So you know, it's basically. I was kidding the people. I don't know if it was not you were there, but I said many of our parishioners should work for Homeland Security because, boy, you're not getting into their bench. You know, they're guarding the end of it.
Oh,
You know,
it's true.
they never get through. So, you know, small things. So again, that's not me. I hope I can set a welcoming tone, but the parishioners have to buy into this and say, you know, we're all invested
Sure.
heavily in this, and it's our parish. We want to survive, to strengthen, to grow. And so little things, it's not rocket science sometimes. It's just doing the small basic hospitality that makes people feel welcome when they come in that door. And then you try to do the other things. Try to have a good religious education program,
Yep.
good music program.
It is a good religious education program.
They work very hard at it.
I taught years ago, and they're really up on it. They work hard, and they love the kids.
Yeah, which is the key
You
thing.
can feel that love. I mean,
Yeah.
they care if the kid isn't looking good, if there's some sort of problem. They think the kid might be there with the kid. And
Now,
they
one
don't
nice thing
hesitate.
about a town like Norfolk is people do know a lot of other people.
That's
So,
true.
you know, gee, someone's husband lost their job and, you know, they need a little
Yes,
assistance
that's
here.
true.
And they can fill you in on that type of thing. So that's a big help. But I noticed this summer when I came here that talking, especially to Gail Patterson, who does the older kids, she's always looking for new resources. You know, how can we look at this book? I think it's really good this year. So it's not like saying, "Well, that program worked last year. Let's do it again," even if
Yeah.
it wasn't that successful. It's like, well, let's look at some new material. Maybe this is something that gets the kids' attention. So I think they are working very, very hard at that.
Of course, the other item that's in our favor is the good cardinal is in very good friends with the Pope. Cardinal
Have you
O'Malley.
noticed that?
I noticed that. They
Yes.
seem to be pretty good buddies. They think along the same lines. And
Yeah, yeah.
and
It
he's
is
depending
amazing.
on the
I
cardinal.
think, you know, if you go way, way back to the days of Cardinal O'Connell, who was in the 30s and 40s, you know, he really wanted the Catholic Church to arrive, and when he became cardinal, he was a prince of the church. You know,
Yes.
you know, he wanted the church to be a force to be reckoned with. Cardinal Cushing, of course, was a great builder. You know,
Oh,
he came out
sure.
to the suburbs. I mean, St. Jude's was built
Yes, it
'59
was,
during his
yep.
tenure. You know, he pushed us way out into the suburbs, and he had great ideas. You know, like let's have a chapel at the airport. Let's have a chapel at South Station. You know, that type. Get people where they're going. So he was really ahead of his time in an awful lot of ways. But now, after sadly some of the real downs that we had in the past 10 years, I think people know very much
Yes,
what I'm talking
yeah,
about.
unfortunately that happened.
Cardinal O'Malley has come with a very simple lifestyle. He is what you see, you know, he's the Franciscan,
Yeah, he
you know,
is.
the robes,
Yep,
the whole
that's
9
what it
yards. He
is.
lives very simply. He lives the cathedral rector in the south end of Boston. You know, he's a couple of rooms there, I guess, and so he doesn't put on many
No,
airs.
no, he
And
doesn't.
I think people appreciate it. I think that's very much in tune with the Pope style. But you know, when I think about the Pope again, you know, being in South America with the poverty that you experience in those countries, you can't help but have your heart changed. You know, I mean, you just can't ignore that. You know, and he used to ride the bus, so he saw it close
He
up.
knew,
it wasn't
yeah,
like
right
he was in a
from the
limousine
ground up,
somewhere,
yeah,
you know,
right
so
from
he
the
saw
ground
what
up.
was happening.
It's
People,
amazing. No, he's done a lot of good, and hopefully he's going to bring a lot of folks back to the church that have sort of wandered off a bit.
Yeah.
Are the two churches about the same as far as the participation goes? Attendees?
Knowing that you're going to throw these hard questions at me, I did my
No
research
numbers.
last
Oh,
night.
you did?
I did my research last night.
I thought I had you.
Well, you know, I think there's an illusion that St. Edward's is much larger than St. Jude's. It really isn't. I think we have roughly almost 1,500 registered families at St. Jude's and 1,800 registered families at St. Edward's. So it's really a very small difference. Religious Ed numbers about the same. The facility is a little bit bigger at St. Edward's. If you've been there, you know, they built administrative space, and they built a big gym that they have there. So it looks a lot larger physically,
Sure,
the
it
plant,
does, yeah.
than St. Jude's does, but number-wise, it's really about the same.
Well, just to give you, I have to say this, quick history. There was no church here in Norfolk except the Federated Church, really. So people went to Rentham, Medfield, Franklin, Walpole. They were scattered all about. And then when it was decided that we would have a priest here, we used to meet at the Grange Hall. One Mass, and that was it. Father Bailey was the original priest. Then people did all kinds of togetherness. We baked spaghetti and meatballs. My father was a famous kind of guy, could pick up a whole pot, feed 200. One person, two, he's not too good at, but he could feed crowds. And they had boxing matches that they put on, and field days. It was really a very tight community. Then, of course, we were able to go from Grange Hall to the chapel, which is down the street on the corner where the roundabout is, and then the church itself.
Yeah.
So a lot of the old timers want to see St. Jude succeed. They wanted to stay, of course. And number two, they wanted to succeed. And they've got a lot of knowledge if we can get them to.
Yes. Well, I
help
mentioned
out.
to you before the show began that when one of the parishioners at St. Timothy's in Norwood, where I'd been previous, found out I was coming to St. Jude, she said, I must tell you, she said, my banns of marriage were announced at the Grange Hall. She must have been at that
That's
one
true.
Mass that they
Yeah,
had.
it was.
A week, and she and
Sure.
her intended were, he was in Norfolk, Dunn was their last name,
Oh, sure.
and Billy Dunn, I think.
Billy
And,
Dunn, I know him well.
yeah.
He's a
So
friend of my
she's-
brother's.
Yeah, so she said.
They had a
that's what it
moving
was announced.
company.
Yep,
Yep.
exactly, yep.
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 Great guy.
So Roberta was
She's a
wife's name.
she's a lovely lady, and knew her down in Mattapoisett. They had a place down there. So you can only say with so much amount of certainty that they're going to keep the two parishes, but you firmly believe, at the moment at least, that St. Jude's will stay and St. Edward's will stay.
I believe that very firmly. And the reason I say that is they're both very vibrant parishes.
Good.
They have growth occurring. I mean, it's lovely. You know, sadly, sometimes you go into some parishes and it's like everybody looks like they really are on their last legs. You know?
True.
And it's wonderful in both parishes. Now, I spend one weekend at each. I try to float back and forth only because I want to be able to spend some time before and after Mass chatting with people, because that's when you get to know them, you know.
Of course.
And if I am going to do one Mass at one place and run to the other place, it doesn't really work well. So I miss, though, I'll be honest with you, I miss not being at each parish every weekend, because
I'm sure.
that's what I most enjoy. Administrative stuff, I'll do it because you have to do it, but I really enjoy
Well,
people.
you build friendships.
I like
and-
people.
Yeah, and
And so that's a little bit of a challenge. But I can tell you, it's so nice to stand in front of church or after church and see young families coming out together. And one thing that I'll assure any of the young people watching this, don't worry about being late, because I have trouble getting myself dressed first thing in the morning. I have a pretty basic outfit. I see them come in with 3 and 4 kids all dressed up. I say, no,
How do they do
if
it?
they're 5 minutes late,
I
geez,
know.
they should
Yeah,
get a
that's
Nobel
true.
Prize for
That's
being there on
true.
time. I think that's
That's true.
great. So again, they're always welcome. But no, I really, when they had asked me to come to these parishes, having been close by, I was in Norwood previous to St. Timothy's, which is actually in the Norwood, Westwood, Walpole line.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people, and I had done weddings over the years, couples that had moved out to this direction after they got married. So I was pretty familiar with the area, and I really knew that these were parishes that would not be closing down. These are parishes that could grow. And
Good.
That's what I wanted to see.
Now, how long were you at St. Timothy's?
14 and a half years.
Really?
Long
So you
time.
were really young.
Yeah, yeah.
So did this come as quite a shock when they called you in and said, hey, we got this assignment for you?
It did, from one perspective. I mean, I knew that eventually I would be asked to probably take over.
Yeah, I
Roundabout.
guess you could probably.
I was surprised that it was so close by, to be honest with you, because usually they try to separate you a little bit further away. But the pros and the cons of that, it is nice that I do see some familiar faces from time to time. I can run back to Norwood if there's a wake or a funeral,
Yeah.
and do things like that that still, mean a lot to people. And but again, I think people respect the fact that it is a new job for me, and that they have to. I want them to keep building up St. Timothy's too. I
course
don't
you
want
do.
people to exodus
Oh, no,
there,
of course
to
you do.
come to another place. I want them to be invested there and build up keep that parish going.
Is St. Timothy's healthy?
Oh, it's a great parish.
Yeah.
It's a great parish.
Because Norwood's a great town.
It is. Again, it's experienced change like most places have. Everybody knew everybody at one point in time. But yeah, again, it was a young parish. There were a lot of young families. And
Sure.
one thing I do miss, and I think anybody misses this when you're in a place for a long time, it was so much fun to baptize a kid and then 7 years later give the kid first communion and
The
then
14
watch
years
them
you
do
saw
the
them, yeah.
confirmation.
You
Yeah,
saw them
exactly.
up the line.
And you can build a relationship with people. So I hope I can do that here too. It's a little more challenging because
Oh,
of
yes, it's a
the
challenge.
separation, but
No.
it's only 4 miles. It's a quick jaunt
that's true.
between the two places. Sometimes even I might say I'm at one parish for certain days of the week, and that's just kind of what I try to do. I spend every other weekend at the parish, unless it's something special.
Sure.
I come back for that. Generally, I do the morning mass at St. Edward's on Monday, and work there in the office for the day, do whatever I need to do, hospital calls, that type of thing. Do the Tuesday morning mass at St. Edward's. Then around noontime, I come over here to St. Jude's, work here through Tuesday afternoon, and then come back here and do the morning mass on Wednesday and Thursday. So I have a full day at St. Jude's at St. Edward's in both places. And come Thursday, I'll clean up whatever I need to do, and I relax on Friday.
So as a good manager, you have to have a good supporting staff. And it seems as though you have that.
Yep, we do. They work very, very hard.
Father Hickey,
Yep.
great guy.
Very interesting.
Isn't he, huh?
Some of the people, and hopefully someday you might invite him to come up and do it, because he's a very interesting
problem.
life story. He, as some people know because he spoke about it, he was married. His wife died back in 1999, and he decided later on, he has a second career, to go into the seminary, and ordained last May. But he's very, very easy person to live with.
Yep.
It's
I
somewhat
bet.
an Oscar Felix type of thing, though I think I tend to be overly he's a little more relaxed, but that's okay. That's what makes the
Sure.
world go round. Your wife is a nice lady, and you want. I mean, but he entered the seminary later, but he's very flexible. He likes people. He's very
He
energetic.
does, doesn't
He'll
he?
do whatever as you know, standing out in
Yep.
front of church before and after. He just really enjoys people. So we're very fortunate that way. We have a small but dedicated staff at St. Jude's. Sue Crane has been there for about 10 years.
Yes,
and
she has.
manages the office. And then we have, Gail and Kathy in the religious head office. We have a very nice fellow, keeps the grounds going for us, and a lovely lady, Mary,
Oh, yes.
who makes those flowers bloom.
Doesn't she?
Oh, I don't know how she does it in this
She's-
hot weather.
She's a senior center.
And one thing that we're going to do that's, I think, kind of interesting, we're just, in fact, we'll go in to St. Jude's on Friday, a new phone system,
Oh, boy.
which will allow us to answer the phone in either place. So if the phone rings up on the screen, I could be sitting at St. Jude's and because they St. Edward's, and I picked up and say St. Edward's Church, they think I'm there.
Wow.
And vice versa, if I'm over.
Ain't science wonderful? If it works.
Well, I've cut off a lot of people, because it was just installed at St. Edward's last week, and I cut off
Okay.
more people. Said, "Oh, I'll get right back to you," and then they were gone forever. But no, and one thing that I was always very conscious of, because Father Rivard lives at St. Jude's.
Yes.
Father Hick and I live at St. Edward's only because of the size of the rectory. St.
Sure.
Jude's rectory is fairly small, really built for 2 people at max. Father Hickey very generously lived down in the basement for a couple of months while we did this little painting at St. Edward's. But one thing that you don't want to miss ever as a priest, if God forbid, someone in your family is very, very sick and you need a priest quickly, you don't want to miss those calls. They're very
Yes.
important. People remember that forever, that you were
They
there
do.
at a critical moment.
It's true.
So having the better phone system now will, I hope, allow us a much better coverage. Because I
Excellent.
always kind of walked out the door at St. Jude's, locked the key and said, I hope nothing. We do have an answering service that picks up, but sometimes there can be gaps.
Oh,
so
sure.
this way will be a little bit more efficient, I hope.
So you have Deacon Cahoney,
Yes.
David.
David's a wonderful guy.
His mom is living here in Norfolk.
Yeah.
There's an old Norfolk family.
I tell you, I have such admiration for him. Now, there's a guy who has a family, a full-time job. He's wonderfully dedicated to the prison
Isn't he
ministry.
dedicated?
And I keep saying, David, you say yes to everybody.
He does. He never
Once
says
in a while, you can
no.
say no. You can't. In fairness to yourself and your
It's
family, you
not
can
in
say no.
his nature.
But it's not in nature, exactly. And he really is a very, very giving person.
You have a priest there, Father Ravad, who is dearly loved.
Yep.
Great guy. Excellent cook. Have you put him to work cooking for
He's,
you?
we didn't want to lose contact with other, so we share the duties.
You do?
Yeah, he'll come over to St. Edward's usually one night a week and have supper over there. We'll come over here one night a week and have supper
Do you make
over
him
here.
cook when he comes over there?
No,
Oh my God,
I
he
ought to
loves
roast.
to
I ought to roast. But he can't cook.
Oh, boy,
In
he
fact,
is.
I think, I hope I'm not giving any secrets, but meatloaf is on the menu for this coming week.
He's
so.
embarrassing. When he's, when we sit and talk, and Nancy and all, he'll rattle off all these recipes, and you say,
And I notice he kisses a lot of the women going to church. Have you
He
noticed
does.
that?
Well, you notice the women kiss him.
Well, maybe that's
I
what it
mean,
is. Thank you for the correction on
it's a
that.
two-way
Yeah,
street.
Exactly. So if they don't feel welcome, I don't know what else you can do possibly to
Now
make them
there's
feel
a
more
welcome.
Exactly.
Well,
No, he's been there 18 years, and I know he was a great asset to Monsignor Conley. And
Yes,
one of my
Monsignor,
first
he
priorities
was-
was to say, to make him know that he was more than welcome to stay.
Oh, he's a great
And
guy.
honestly, Richard, without him, we would have had to probably adjust some things.
I
The
think
mass
you would
schedule,
have.
people get very settled into them. We haven't had to change any of that yet, but only able to do that because of his assistance. And if I have to be away for something, he's more than willing to jump in and take
Gives
it
a
on.
great sermon.
Yeah, he works very hard at that.
I'm not saying anything, but he gives a great
Yeah,
sermon.
thanks a lot. I can read between the lines, I wasn't born yesterday. But
Well, he's a little older than you.
we're
Maybe
very,
you could
we're
guess.
very blessed. We really
I'm
are.
sure we are.
I could not be working with more cooperative and helpful people.
Okay, Father, we're going to bail out of here.
Wonderful. Well, it was a pleasure talking with
But
you.
well, before we do that, let's do it again.
Good.
Further down the line, after you've got your feet
A little more wet.
a little more wet, and
Okay.
we'll, if Father Hickey wants to come, or
Great.
we can never get Father Ravad. He's got a great history of Peru and Philippines and so on.
yeah.
He's shy. He's camera shy.
Yeah.
Can't get him to come on.
Maybe we can do it. Maybe if he sits at my side or something like that. Maybe
Could be. We'll work on it. But I would like Father Hickey to join us.
Good.
That would be
I think
great.
that would be great.
And I'm sure the folks watching the show.
Great.
Thank you, Father.
Thanks,
And
Richard.
good luck to
Great
you.
to see you. Thank you very much for your time.